Hello, I'm Jennifer,
I'm Mike.
And I'm Andrea.
and we're not
We're not
saints,
saints.
but we're definitely learning from them. And today I am super excited. And I'm going to really try to stay calm because I am in love with our saint that we're talking about today, Saint Philip Neri. And he was a pastor that believed he needed to walk with his flock. And I love that. He walked with them every day. He had a huge following and lived in joy. And instead of, he was known actually as the Apostle of Rome, but he drew people to God not through fear, but through compassion, through joy, through laughter. And presence. I don't know if you guys got as excited as I did, but I love him. And he spent hours listening to people's confessions, especially young people, drawing them closer to Christ, closer to God. It's just beautiful, all that he did. People trusted him because they felt truly loved in his presence. And what I'm going to tie this in, and I'm not sure if you guys saw any of this, but it reminded me so much of our priest, Father Stephen in Culver. Over the weekend, it was Pentecost. And of course, our church had a Pentecost party. And of course, there were fireworks and children and families. And I looked out and there our Father Stephen is throwing 16-pound medicine balls.
Yeah.
With the young kids, the laughter. He's like Pied Piper. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know what? He's kind of like Saint Philip. I can't wait to tell him that I came up with that little analogy today. Who knows if he'll take it or not. But did you guys see that or feel it?
Don't forget the bonfires and the
Yes.
s'mores.
Oh, the bonfire, s'mores, fruit. It was lovely.
Yeah, and a lot of like his kind of approach to reaching out to the community and trying to bring people in, even the people who aren't a part of the church yet, he's like, it's welcome to everybody. And his way to connect to people is so down to earth.
Yeah, and you know what? So yesterday after Mass, I got a text from a friend who I didn't know was here. And she's like, what is the name of your priest? I just went to the 11:30 Mass. It was fabulous. And it was the best confession I've ever done. And I loved getting that message. It was so joyful, right? And another thing too, I talk about Saint Philip Neri in my third book. And so I've kept him quiet with our group here because I love my chapter on gossip, which during confession, should I tell the story or I should have people read the book? Well, I have to tell the story because it just makes me happy.
Maybe just like a little tidbit, like leave them wanting more. Tell them part of the story.
Well, a woman came into confession and her sin was gossip. And she kept coming back. She gossip. It's a sin, whatever. And he finally told her, you know what? I need you to go to the market and buy a chicken. And then once you buy this chicken, I want you to walk home and I want you to pluck every feather off of the chicken. Now, can I tell the rest of the story?
Now you have to tell the rest of the story.
Okay. So the next day she went back to see him and she said, I did what you said. And he said, guess what? I need you to go pick up every feather that you plucked. And she said, what? That's impossible. And he said, exactly. He said, you know what? When you gossip and you put that out in the world, it's really hard to pull it back in. I just love that. I love. And I might have said it a little better in the book, but I love the story and I love this man. And I feel like we are going to learn so much about him. Oh, but one other thing, May 26th is his feast day, which is yesterday. And that is also my son James's birthday. And the more that I was reading about him, James was kind of joyful and happy and all of that. It just brought me pleasure that on my son's birthday is also, and I never knew it till today. So anyway, turning the mic to Mike.
Philip Neri was born on July 21st, 1515 in Florence, Italy. He died in 1595 in Rome, Italy, canonized March 12th, and feast day May 26th, as Jennifer said. He's known for joyful teaching, humor, kindness, and the renewing of the Catholic Church in Rome. Because I think Andrea has more detail on it, but he went back to Rome and he started teaching Catholics, and he wasn't a priest at that time, but he started teaching and spreading the word, and he used humor because at the time the Catholic Church was very by the book, and it was like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and people were like, oh, they were
leaving the church too.
Yeah, and there was a lot of different religions trying to take over at that period. So with his type of teaching, using humor and singing, and it was more of a joyful service than people were used to. They, especially young people, really started coming in. And he also invited in like the homeless people and really poor people, prostitutes and anybody that was there came to his.
And he started bringing them in his room, right? As he was meeting with them in his salon.
Right.
And it got so big, they had to move. There was no room left.
Right. He kept
standing room only.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what every priest wants, I guess, just to have everybody want to gather around and want to be together. So it's definitely reminiscent of what we experience here in Culver with Father Stephen. And whenever we talk about the singing parts too, I think of the hayride that we do with Father Stephen from the cemetery back to the church in the fall. And he starts singing old Irish tunes, or, they might be some religious ones in there too. But it's interesting, the things that really attract people and bring them together. They get their foot in the door, and then you can begin working on the gospel and really diving into what it means.
Get their attention.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's something else that Philip did. He often would shave half of his beard off and then go in public to make humor of himself. And so it gave him humility and avoid his self-pride in himself by shaving his beard, or he'd wear his clothes backwards.
And vanity was something he was constantly fighting.
To teach humility. Yeah, he just brought things on himself through humor.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and I'm just happy. We've gone through all of these other saints where they get decapitated, they get murdered. And this saint, I can't wait till when we go to Rome this summer to go to where he is.
He had a huge heart.
right.
Not only physically, he had a huge heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to tell that, Andrea?
Yeah. I wanted to go back a little bit just to recap. So he was born in Florence, but his family originally came from Castelfranco. At first, I thought when I was reading it, they were going to say Castelfrontano, which is in Abruzzo, which is where some of my family lives. So it's really cool to have a little bit of insight as to some of these places where his family originally came. But many of his family members practiced their professions and they took rank in Tuscany. His father, Francesco, was a notary, and he made a bit of a fortune from that. But his mother, she died when he was younger, and in the place of his mother, he did have a stepmother, and then he also had a younger brother who died in early childhood. So he did experience death in the family at an early age, but he also had younger sisters, and our Saint Philip was known as Good Little Phil. So from infancy, despite the loss that he experienced, he had a very chipper disposition, just like you were saying, and reminiscent of James and his spirit, your son. And all in the town and in his family, they called him Pippo Buono, which means Good Little Phil. And I think that's special because he's just known as a very sweet personality, very docile, and many in their town were very fond of him. At 8 years old, I don't know if you guys read this, but he rode a donkey into a cellar, and then he came out and he was totally fine. He was not injured. But you just think of your child going into a cellar, riding a donkey, and I'm just like, okay, he was definitely protected from an early age.
Exactly.
And then you guys had mentioned that he went to Rome. He was 16 and he was sent to his father's cousin's house to work in business in San Germano. And he was kind of supposed to be the heir of his father's cousin's business. But Philip would always go away to pray at the Benedictine Mountain Chapel, and he would try to just pray as much as he can. And it was through that his vocation became certain, that he was wanting to be an apostle. He wanted to live in Rome and work in Rome. But when he arrives in Rome, he was not wealthy at all. He didn't really have anything to his name, and he cut himself off from his family's expectation of him to to be his dad's cousin's heir. But a Florentine resident, somebody gave him a room and they gave him allowance of flour, and he was kind of working as a tutor for this gentleman who took him into his home. And so he was able to tutor the two sons of the Florence residents, and he lived as a layman. So he hadn't become a priest yet, but he was already beginning his work. He spent 3 years
like a
studying.
layman for 17 years before he became a priest.
I want to say, yeah, it was like 1533.
I just remember thinking 17 years, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a while. And he did try studying over at, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Sapienza, and he studied philosophy and theology with the Augustinians. He kind of walked away from that though, and he went even deeper into his practice and tried to connect with His Holiness. He would eat one meal a day. It was bread and water. He slept on the floor. He disciplined himself, and he was just kind of set out to become an apostle of Rome. He would visit hospitals. He would, like I said earlier, he was tutoring. He would go to shops and warehouses, banks and public places, and he would just speak to people and connect with them. And his question to people as they would pass by is, when shall we begin to do good? Or when would you like to do something good today? And if somebody's answer was yes, that was his moment. That was how he was connecting and trying to do good in Rome while he was there. Now, Mike had mentioned that he had a big heart, and that's evident throughout all of his story thus far. He wanted to serve his family, so he went and he lived with his dad's cousin. He tried that. He wanted to teach others, so he did the tutoring thing, and then he just started kind of freestyling, asking people, "Are you ready to do good?" Now, this is where we get to the miracle of his heart enlarging. And this happened a few days before Pentecost. He had this vision, a globe of fire entered into his mouth, and he felt it in his chest, and he felt his heart grow larger. And it was kind of the feeling of being lodged between his rib cages. He was unable to bear it, and he threw himself on the ground, and he said, God, that's enough, that's enough. God was actually filling him with his love during this time and in this moment. And he felt that. He felt the swelling, and he described it as big as a man's fist. There was no words and there was no wound showing the entry of this globe of fire. But after his death, when doctors were examining his body, it showed that his heart had been dilated, and they'll say that it was because of this impulse of love. But 2 of his ribs were broken and removed from the entry of this globe of fire. And I thought that was awesome because it happened right before Pentecost. And just if anybody is wondering, what is Pentecost anyway? It closes out the Easter season. It happens 50 days after the resurrection is celebrated. Jen, actually, this will nod to your Greek culture. The word Pentecost is from the Greek word that means 5. So it happens 50 days after Easter, and it's a celebration where the early disciples experienced the filling of the Holy Spirit as promised by Jesus.
The 12 apostles and Mary. And it happens that they received the Holy Spirit 9 days after praying. After Jesus ascended, 9 days later, the Holy Spirit comes. And that is when the birth of the church happened, which is why we have the Pentecost party.
Exactly. It's a total celebration, and I think it's no mistake that this happened to him on the eve of Pentecost. So he was blessed and given that gift. Some other major milestones of his life, Saint Philip had a great friendship with Saint Ignatius of Loyola.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I love to imagine our saints just kind of hanging out with their friends or connecting with each other in different ways.
And sharing their love of God.
Yes.
But also, too, but when he was a layman, too, he sent a lot of people who were interested in finding Jesus, in God, to actually the Ignatius Center. So I was reading all about that, too. Even though he did not follow that order, he started a new order.
Right. It was the little oratory, or is that what it's called? The English?
Yes.
The little English oratory?
Congregation of the Oratory. But yes.
Yes. Okay. Congregation of the
Yeah.
Oratory, and that was on the 15th of July. So that was in Santa Maria in Vallicella. So in 1551, he became an ordained priest. So he received his true vocation of the priesthood and he was ordained, and he moved to live with the priests in San Giovanni dei Fiorentini. I'm going to be made fun of. It's fine. And later he went to San Girolamo. I wish we had the English translation of these places, but despite all of the places and occupation, wherever he occupied, he was Rome's most sought after confessor, and probably because his penance was so relatable, and it just kind of is like, okay, here's your light bulb moment. If you want to gossip, go and spread these feathers all over and try to collect them. What a genius way to teach a lesson. I love when teachers use these real life ways of like getting to you and making you realize, oh, that probably wasn't my best hour. But he would spend hours in the confessional from sunrise to sundown. Even on his last day on earth, he spent hours giving confessions, being with people. And that was his favorite thing. And this is where it really reminds me of Father Stephen too, because he offers so many times for confession throughout the day. If somebody calls and they need a confession, I know they're obligated, priests are obligated to go when they need to go. But Father Stephen also takes it very seriously, and he gives people that ability to access him and have that moment. And a lot of people say the same about Father Stephen too.
Yeah, it's not just us.
Yes. And so
Like
it
I
was
said, I got that text yesterday. It was like, wow, I loved it. I'm
right.
addicted to confession.
I know. I always end up I'll if I'm with Father Stephen, I mention him, oh, I got to get to confession. He goes, let's do it right now. And he gets all ready. He's like, what do we got? And I'm like, man, why'd I say it? Because we're doing it like eye to eye. And now I have to tell you to your face. Anyway, he doesn't make it awkward or not fun, of course. It's never fun to say what you've done wrong. But coming up on his holy death, so on the Feast of Corpus Christi, Philip was actually in a really good mood. His physician said that he hadn't looked this well for 10 years. And he realized that he was coming up on his death. But like I said, he heard confessions all day, and then he died peacefully in the night. Now, this is a change up from some of the other saints that we have covered here. So he passed away on May 26th, and he was, again, just in a great mood, had a great day. What's that?
He still had his head on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, thank goodness we can bring everybody a saint that doesn't get brutally murdered. I mean, this is our gift to everybody for Pentecost.
Yeah.
So because he didn't die in such a terrible way, when he's depicted in art, he is often depicted with an inflamed heart, which represents the miracle that happened to him on the Vigil of Pentecost in 1544. The globe of fire entering his chest, you'll see that enlarging his heart when he is depicted.
Right.
You'll also see the rosary in most depictions, and that's just basically a nod to his devotion to the Catholic faith and the Blessed Mother. And of course, we've seen this before in our other saints, the lily symbolizing purity and innocence. And I love that we get to know a little bit the backstory of like, what are these depictions actually meaning? So I'm happy that we've started doing that.
And you know what I love? Every painting I looked, you could see this. I mean, his face is just pure joy. I mean, it really is. Every painting depicted, they captured just his joy, at least the ones I saw.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we should all try to replicate that. And, you know, humor also, the fact that humor is mentioned a lot throughout how he kind of existed in his, when he was alive. I always think that humor is a great remedy for most things. And even when you're going through a tough time, if you can spin it and make humor of the situation, that's great. It's going to help get you through it and try to.
You do it beautifully, Andrea. You do it beautifully.
I'm the funniest person out there. Now,
of course you are. I think so.
But it also, I wanted to mention, I mean, I always have a verse, but I also have a quote from Saint Philip that I'd like to share as well whenever we wrap up.
Please do.
Okay, so Saint Philip famously said, "A joyful heart is more easily made perfect than a downcast one." And let that sink in. A joyful heart is more easily made perfect than a downcast one. So,
amen. I love it.
Yeah, even if you're in a bad place right now, which I mean, we all
Sure.
are from time to time. I can definitely say I'm not in the best place, but you got to try to find joy where you can. Makes it easier to access because when you're not joyful and when you shut down completely, it's harder to break into your heart. And I'm guilty of doing this just yesterday. I did shut down yesterday and I missed out on things because I wasn't living joyfully and I let emotions get the better of me. So I think it also piggybacks well on the Bible verse that I have from Philippians 4, verses 4-5. And that says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near." So don't be afraid to be gentle and open up your heart. As I just said, I shut it down yesterday and I missed out on things. And when you are going through those tough times, don't be afraid to continue to let people in. And even if you're not going through a hard time, just like Saint Philip, his way was being open and being gentle. And same with Father Stephen, and same with you,
Right.
Jen, with writing your book. And Mike, always just the winner for the calmest people ever.
Yes,
He's
exactly.
just always very zen, he's able to keep it cool even in stressful or scary situations. So continuously letting people in, I think even through this show and admitting to, any of the terrible things going on or that have happened in our lives, if we can let our gentleness be evident to all, it will make you more approachable and more relatable, and you'll spread more joy and happiness that way.
Exactly. I love that. As I said, I think Saint Philip Neri speaks so powerfully to all of us today, especially in our world today, which has so many distractions, right? And it can feel heavy, like whatever you experienced yesterday. It can feel divided, distracted, and lonely. I mean, so he reminds us that joy is holy, right? I mean, if we can go to that, which I always say, that love space in our heart, like he did, and go to joy, I think that's what God wanted. I think kindness matters. I think listening matters and presence matters. And that's what he was all about. And as I said, he makes me so happy and I want to remember him all the time. So like on yesterday, I would love to say, Andrea, St. Philip, remember,
Yes,
remember.
remember.
Good. Yes. And one thing I can say, people may forget sermons, but they'll never forget how someone made them feel. And that's what I think about St. Philip Neri. He made people feel closer to God. And to me, I just think that is phenomenal. As I said, there was nothing, it was like almost you could feel as you were studying him and learning more. And even when I was writing my book and working on this gossip session, and I found out about him back then, it's like I'm getting my goosebumps all over, but like you can feel his joy. I can feel his joy in my heart is how I can say it,
Absolutely.
And if all of us could live just a little bit more like Saint Philip Neri, right? With joyful hearts, with compassionate spirits, gentle words, patience, which as you know, that's my thing. I'm working. You know what? We're
Guilty.
all working every day. We have to
Right.
work every day, right? To be the best we can be. And it's hard. Life's not easy and we can get triggered and we're not perfect, but all we can do is try. And I just think he's a great teacher. He was a great teacher for me. And I hope others learn more about him because he's an inspiration. So
Absolutely. I'm excited that we learned through this that his feast day is the same day as James's birthday. I love that they can share that. And I think that's a little gift to, to all
in
of us.
itself,
We're remembering both James and Saint Philip, and we can see also when people around us exemplify some of those qualities. So that's great.
exactly.
Mike, any last words?
You started to say something to me, cut you
I
off.
know. I'm sorry.
No.
All good. Well, you guys, thanks again for joining us. And I hope everyone had a great Pentecost and a great Memorial weekend. And we look forward again to seeing you next week. And again, we so appreciate you. Thanks for the kind comments, the kind words, and joining us on this journey.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of We're Not Saints. For more of the We're Not Saints shenanigans and behind-the-scenes content, you can follow us on Instagram at We're Not Saints 1. That's We're Not Saints 1, without the apostrophe. And be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to hear from you. So leave us a comment or a review, or contact us by email at we're not saints1 at gmail.com.
And if you'd like to have a great companion to your weekly saint studies with us, you can purchase a copy of my books. Are You There, Mary? How to Resurrect in Love After Loss, and or Finding Love in the Confessional on Amazon, available as a Kindle version or paperback.
All these links will be provided in the description of this episode. And don't forget to tune in next Wednesday for our weekly dose of saints. God bless you.
Should you read it again with more intonation?
No.
It was very Mike.